Hello everybody and welcome to another video of DIY investing. For today's video, we're going to be talking about how the bottom was in, why I ultimately believe that the bottom was in, and what this means moving forward. Bitcoin has broken out, many of the altcoins are waiting right behind it to do the same, and there's going to be a ton of profit to be made inside of this calendar year of 2023. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and with that being said, let's jump right into this amazing video today. Alrighty guys, so here we are taking a look at the total market cap. Now you guys know over the last couple weeks I've really been trying to pound at home why I ultimately believe that the bottom was in, why this is actually an opportunity to be buying for the long term, and why the people that are ultimately waiting for these massive 10K targets and even $500 for Ethereum will probably be wrong. Now, over the last couple days, we've seen a massive rise inside of the total market cap. Now, I wouldn't say that we're completely out of the clear yet, but the fact that we were always holding support above these June lows, like I'd been talking about, when I was watching the total market cap, we had never really broke below the June lows. The bottom of the FTX collapse took us right down to support. We made a couple attempts at breaking below that, but every single time we tried, we ultimately got bought up, and we ended up just holding support throughout this entirety of this consolidation. And so while Bitcoin did make a lower low, a lot of that was just because of the added volatility that is ultimately going to be traded inside of the Bitcoin chart. But when we take the time to ultimately look over here at the total market cap, I've always said that when there's uncertainty inside of the Bitcoin price against the dollar, there's going to be volatility inside of those markets sometimes. When it's really volatile, the best thing that we can do is go over here and look at the total market cap, because the total market cap obeys support and resistance levels better, and it follows a much more consistent degree of trend. And so by understanding this, it puts us in a much greater opportunity to make profit, and that's kind of what I was watching for a true bottom. The fact that Bitcoin made a lower low, but the total market cap held support, told me that there was a lot more buy support than people were led to believe. Now, here's the thing, guys. A lot of people have also made the argument that I've seen that this can't be the bottom, that this is a bull trap before we get one more final low. And the reason why they think that is because since Bitcoin made a lower low, they look at this entire consolidation as not really meaning anything. They look at this being a very short-term consolidation. But the big thing I want you guys to be reminded of is if we come over here at the exact bottom of the June lows and we drag this over here, we've literally been sitting at over 200 days inside of this consolidation. So we're looking at, the better half of a year. And so at this point, this has been a very consistent amount of consolidation, one that can ultimately produce a large breakout to the upside. And that's kind of what I was pinpointing, or at least trying to share with you guys, was how this bottom formation looks almost identical to every single one of the major crypto bear market bottoms that I've had the pleasure of trading. Keep in mind, guys, that this is my 7th year inside of crypto. I got in early 2015 and 2016. And so now that we're here at this point, it's been amazing because I've had the opportunity of seeing how each and every bear cycle from that point has played out. And I remember inside of my first bear market right here, watching this long-term consolidation, this consolidation right at this point here was about 280 days. And so we're sitting at just a little bit under that. This is only a little over 200 days. But nonetheless, the same length of time that it took Bitcoin to consolidate throughout this 2015 bottom formation has been roughly the same amount of time that we've been spending inside of our most recent bear market bottom as well. These are all just further indications and clues that told me that the bottom was going to be in, not even mentioning the 4-year cycle timeframes flashing, but this is ultimately what I was looking at. Now, inside of this middle chart, we also have Ethereum. I'm going to go through from the very top, and we're just going to analyze how similar these consolidations are and why I've been so adamant in stating that the bottom is in, why we're going to be expecting to see a breakout, and how to go about profiting off of that. Now, first things first, guys. In the exact same rule of thumb, the same trajectory that we've seen every single bear market, at the bottom of capitulation, we make our first higher high, and this is literally what sets in our range, right? We have the range lows that come in at the bottom of capitulation. We consolidate. We make a lower high upwards into resistance. This creates our range highs. We kind of go through this rounding out consolidation in between the high point of the range and the low point of the range. We make one more attempt at a breakout, and then we ultimately get one more final retest of our range lows, and this is ultimately our final bear trap. This is where everybody thinks the whole market's going to collapse, everybody thinks it's going to break down, yet this is ultimately where we find support. Now, in the exact same way that we saw this bottom play out most recently inside of our bear market today, we saw the same thing happen here into Ethereum. This was Ethereum's bear market. The difference was it took about over twice, about 3 times the amount of time to consolidate and finish this bottom formation for Ethereum. Now, what we saw with Ethereum was pretty much the same. Consolidation leads to a capitulation, consolidation, capitulation, consolidate, we make an attempt at a lower high. This rallies up into our range highs are up here. We draw a line. So we have our range lows, we have our range highs. In the exact same rule of thumb, we kind of consolidate in between the high point and the mid and the low point of the range. Same thing happened here for Ethereum. We make one more final attempt at a breakout of the range highs. We get stuffed, and this takes us to our final bear trap and the retest of our range lows. The same thing happened. The only difference was we had added influence being inside of the Bitcoin chart. We ended up making a lower low because of all of the FUD around the FTX collapse. There was way more reason for this to end up making a lower low, yet we never actually made a lower low. FTX collapsing was such a huge thing because it was really coming at the back end of multiple other hedge funds collapsing inside of our crypto space. Really, these were lending products that collapsed. When they collapsed, it was adding a lot of fear, and this ultimately led to the end and the demise of the FTX exchange. Now, for me, in my opinion, if the FTX collapse couldn't ultimately make the whole crypto market make a lower low, as indicated by this total market cap chart, then nothing really was. I mean, what we saw was the potentiality of grayscale and all of that FUD around there, and I did talk about how that could be a catalyst for seeing us make a lower low. But I also stated if we look past the 8th of January and we get into, the 10th to the 15th of January and we still haven't made a lower low, then I told you guys that it was apparent that the bottom was most likely in. And as you guys can see, we never made a lower low from that point. We're sitting here at the 13th of January, and after this chart, we actually started to see a massive breakout. I drew this chart, and then the exact day of, we started to see Bitcoin really breaking out. And so everything is kind of followed according to plan so far. Everything is followed according to plan, and this is making me ultimately believe that the bottom truly is in, and we have confirmation regarding that. Now, as we can see here, after Ethereum retested the range lows, kind of the next thing that we would expect to see is ultimately for us to break out of the range highs, retest the range highs as support, and then that kind of sets us in for confirmation that the bottom is in. Now, that's basically what we have to see right now. Based off the total market cap, we are sitting a little higher than where we're at right now, but we still have to get above our range highs, and I do believe that that's going to be the next move that comes. Throughout February to March, I believe that we're going to make a rally up, break out of these range highs, and then once we get a retest of our range highs, basically taking us into the August highs here, then that's going to be the confirmation that we need that truly sets in our double bottom formation, the reversal of our entire bear trend, and ultimately sends us into new all-time highs, probably sometime late 2023 to early 2024. That would be my guess. Now, inside of Ethereum, we saw that exact same thing play out. When it broke up, ran upwards of about $450, retested about $300. This was our bottom and the reversal point of that bottom formation. We can see that the same thing happened here in 2015. Bitcoin's consolidation in 2015 was much more symmetrical. We saw the range lows, we saw the range highs. The midpoint was equal in between the range highs and the range lows. We ended up coming back up to retest the range highs twice, and then we also retested our range lows twice. This was a much more consistent bottom formation, and really, Ethereum was pretty close to that, but we didn't quite rally up to retest the range highs, and we didn't quite manage to retest all the way at the range lows, but it's still the same thing. It's the same emotions that are trading the same patterns, and that's what I want you guys to pay attention for. The big thing that we need to remember here is once we actually flip the range highs and we retest those range highs as support, that is truly what sets us in for the confirmation of the bottom being in. This is what happened inside of our 2019 to 2020 bear market for Ethereum, and many of the other altcoins created this bottom formation. This is what happened for 2015 to the latter part of that same year for Bitcoin in 2015. And this is the exact same thing that is playing out from June of 2022, taking us into the very beginning of 2023. And so I've talked to you guys about this pattern extensively because I believe that it's very important, right? Once we can reclaim these range highs, which my guess would be we rally up, we might see a short-term correction in here, and if that's the case, we would ultimately be flipping this short-term range down here, right? This is kind of the range that we were consolidating at. You know, this was our resistance level that we had been at, and we could really draw this range a couple different ways, but I would be looking at it about 815 billion in market cap. Now, I'm not really going to say how high we're going to get because I don't exactly know, but if we were able to get a retest of this range, that would be such an amazing opportunity to get back in, especially the people that weren't willing to accumulate down here at these lows. If you're watching this and you're feeling like you're getting left behind already, you know, maybe you will get left behind, because here's the thing, guys. If we look back on these charts, if we look back at how every single one of these breakouts happened, we didn't really get a pullback until we were already well past our range highs. Same thing happened here. You know, it's a little bit different in the Ethereum bear market because we spent a lot of time just kind of consolidating and building a trend line. But once we ultimately broke out, it happened very quick, it was very sudden, and it caused a lot of people to FOMO buy at the top before we ultimately retested those range highs. But nonetheless, none of these really got a confirmation or a retest of these prior ranges. They all kind of just broke out pretty quickly. And so if that's going to be the case again, if we do see a retest of this range high, that's the first time that we've ever seen this bottom formation do that. And I really think that everybody should do their part by jumping in on that opportunity if given. But nonetheless, guys, if you weren't the person that was willing to accumulate down here and you're watching this kind of leave without you, I really wouldn't be surprised to see, you know, these short-term corrections as we ultimately rally back up here. And, you know, from this point, maybe we see a short-term consolidation, and it could actually take off a lot quicker than people expect. I'm not going to really draw it so wonky like this because here's the thing, guys. If we're following based off of how this pattern has played out in years past, after the COVID capitulation for Ethereum, we really consistently built a new trend, and we didn't really have any pullbacks until the breakout point. If we looked at what happened inside of Bitcoin, pretty much the same thing. We spent a lot of time rounding out, and that led us to a massive breakout and then a retest of our range lows, or I should say our range highs. Now, if we're looking at what we're doing today, this bottom formation looks a lot more symmetrical with what we saw back here in later part of 2015 for Bitcoin, and that was what produced this massive breakout. And so I'm not going to say exactly what's going to happen because I truly don't know. What I've been following is this bottom formation, and based off of this bottom formation, we've kind of consistently built a trend both on Ethereum and Bitcoin. And so I just drew this line as kind of a reference point. And so when we're looking at this, I really wouldn't be surprised to see kind of the same thing sort of playing out here once again, where we start building this new trend line, and we might get a retest of this trend line, and that most likely would be, you know, where you'd want to be scaling in. It's hard to say exactly what that's going to look like, but if we just start growing off of this trend line, you're going to want to do your part by getting in early, because even though, you know, we've bounced off of the lows, most likely we won't ever get back down to these range lows again. There's still going to be opportunities to get in. There's always going to be dips that are going to be opportunities for the person to get in that hasn't been actually buying. And so if we build a trend line like what we saw with all of our prior cycles, those are going to be the opportunities to get back into the market, because ultimately what we believe is going to happen is a pretty large breakout. I would say that we rally upwards of, you know, probably around here to 30K all the way upwards of 40K. And if that's the case, we would probably get a retest of this level. Because here's the thing, guys, this 30K level is a very, very important level, and I mapped it out in some of my prior videos. I said that after every bear market, which we can actually drop this to a bigger time frame, go to the log scale, and I'll explain exactly what I'm talking about. After every bear market, we literally revert back to the mean, right? We have this descending resistance. We'll make it red. When we make our first breakout into the new bull trend, it pretty much takes us right to the mid-range point from the range highs to the range lows. And that's where we ultimately see the reversion back to the mean trend line. We saw that inside of this bear market. We saw that inside of this bear market. When Bitcoin first broke out into the new trend, we reverted straight back to this mean between the range highs and the range lows. We went right in between both of those. And we've done this literally every bear market except for 2018. Bitcoin actually extended way above the mid-range point, right? We almost made a new all-time high. So that's why I say that what we should expect to see is at the very least a reversion back to the mean trend line. And if that's going to be the case, then what we would expect to see for Bitcoin is pretty much this. A move up to this level, us to flip this prior level, and then us to get back above and do something like this throughout 2023. That would be my guess. You know, it's hard to say. We can't predict exactly how the price is going to look. You know, what we saw in 2018, we ended up getting a massive capitulation event that would have been an opportunity to get back into the market. Inside of the 2017 bull market, we really just saw higher highs and higher lows, a really consistent and beautiful uptrend all the way through. And that was kind of the same thing all the way back in 2011 to 2012. So what I would say is, assuming we don't have some massive capitulation event that is kind of a black swan type of event like what we saw with COVID, assuming that the calendar year through 2023, 2024, into 2025 is going to be consistent with prior bull cycles, then we will most likely end up just seeing this. Higher highs and higher lows. You want to get in after we make a higher low, when we're correcting back down, retesting prior resistance levels as support. That's where the most likely opportunity for getting in with the lowest risk is going to be. And we can see that that was the case throughout every single one of these trends. Whenever we make a higher high and we retest the previous high as support, that's where you want to be getting into these markets, because they can take off very quickly. Inside of Bitcoin's last cycle, or I should say 2017, we saw a number of these different opportunities to get back into the market. Many of them. Obviously speaking, once we actually started to distance ourselves and make new all-time highs, it wasn't as consistent. You wouldn't have been able to get in here on some of these attempts. But nonetheless, had you have understood this, you would have been able to get in. And that's the big thing I want you guys to remember here. Assuming we don't have some massive black swan type of event, we could easily just see a consistent uptrend being built throughout this calendar year. And if it ends up playing out more consistent with our last cycle, we could see a massive breakout. Maybe we rally all the way up to 40 to 50K. We flip this 30K region. Maybe we make one little attempt at a fake out to retest, you know, the August highs back here at about, you know, 25K, I would say. But nonetheless, if it plays out kind of like this move here, and we retest all the way up to 40 to 50K, you don't want to be the guy that completely misses out on buying down here. Now, a lot of people will say, don't FOMO buy right now because the market's now green and going up and we're now into resistance. And while I will say, yes, that is the average rule that we will follow throughout any sort of cycle, I will say that if looking back in hindsight, you know, 2024, midpoint to 2024, the Bitcoin halving and all that stuff, the market's going to be up so much higher that you don't want to get so focused in on the very macro view, or I should say the micro view. When we're looking at all the way down in here, we're still sitting right at the range support prior to the FTX collapse, which is, you know, 2 years down the line is going to be looked at as an amazing opportunity to get back into the market. Many people are going to miss out on doing so entirely because they're so traumatized by all of the bear market we just went through. And so while yes, technically we're FOMO buying into resistance right now, if you are buying, I wouldn't consider it FOMO buying if you have a long-term perspective. If we're looking at the macro view, we know 2 years down the line, Bitcoin's most likely going to be up significantly higher than where we're at today. And so that's a big thing to remember. If what you were waiting for was true confirmation that the bottom was going to be in my opinion, we've pretty much got that. We never made a lower low after the FTX collapse. Yes, we technically did on the dollar chart for Bitcoin, but the big thing I'm looking at here is actually the total market cap, because we never actually made a lower low. That's the big indication that was telling me the market was bullish. The reason I've been buying and had the conviction to buy throughout the uncertain times is because the total market cap never made a lower low. That told me that there was a lot of strength in the market. And now we're pretty much looking at also a breakout from major descending resistance. Also, we've already got, you know, our 4-year cycle low stitched in there. And that's the cool thing with Bitcoin, is Bitcoin making a lower low. We actually saw Bitcoin follow a 4-year cycle more consistently than the total market cap, because technically speaking, you know, our low point of the range was here in July, which is not following the 4-year cycle. Our secondary low that we got here in November was technically our 4-year cycle low. So while the total market cap never made a lower low, Bitcoin did make a lower low. And this is way more consistent with what we would expect to see inside of a 4-year cycle, right? If we pull our date range tool, we go from our, all the way over here, sorry. I'm getting ahead of myself, or behind myself, I should say. We go all the way over here. It's the exact same time frame, 1,428 days, 1,450 days is 4 years, is the same as, you know, the first bear market and 4-year cycle I ever went through. From 2015 to 2018, beginning of 2019, It's the same amount of time. And that's why I told you guys that there's many reasons to be buying. There's almost no reason to be, there's no reason to be selling. If you weren't selling up here, there's definitely no reason to be selling throughout this time. The only thing we should have been doing is buying or holding throughout the uncertain times. And so now, guys, we don't know exactly how the new trend is going to look. We could see one massive breakout like what we saw over here in 2019. We also could see a much more consistent degree of trending that played out like what we saw with 2017. I'm not going to try and predict that because I truly don't think it matters. What I think matters the most is understanding that the bottom is in, understanding our 4-year cycle timeframes have already given us a major buy signal based off of that cycle time frame. And now what we're going to be expecting to see is the new degree of trend inside of our bull market. Whether that's just short-term higher highs and higher lows, whether we make a small impulse to our mid-range, or whether we make a massive move like what we saw in 2019. The best thing that we can do is be prepared beforehand, because these are things that we can't predict. These are things that are going to happen later down the line. Whether we see a massive breakout or a much more consistent degree of trend, don't focus in on that so much. Understand that the big picture, we're going to be trending up. That's all that really matters in my opinion. Now, one other thing I want to look at here is going to be the Bitcoin dominance. We know Bitcoin dominance is in a multi-year downtrend. Ever since altcoins came onto the scene in 2012 to 13, that was basically where we started to see the dominance of Bitcoin consistently dropping. 2017 was a massive year for altcoins. We saw this drop significantly. 2018 bear market saw Bitcoin make higher highs and higher lows, ultimately a lower high inside of a new trend. And then when we actually saw, the bottom here in 2019, we started to see the dominance starting to fall again. The big difference here is throughout our entire last bull cycle, we never made a lower low, right? We never went into price discovery like what we saw here for 2017. We never really saw that exact same thing. I believe this cycle is going to be so much bigger for altcoins, even though many of them are going to continue to see diminishing returns like Ethereum, which is going to be expected anytime you have multi-billions of dollars and more liquidity inside the market, the volatility dies out. But nonetheless, there's always new altcoins that come out. Every cycle, there's new altcoins that do 100x, 500x, 1000x returns, and we're going to expect to see the same thing. The reason I believe that much more altcoins are going to have a bigger cycle this time around has everything to do with the fact altcoins against their Bitcoin pairs never actually made a cycle. If we look at XRP against Bitcoin, they look very, very bullish on the big picture, but we never made a cycle, right? We're accumulating, we have tons of new volume in here. That tells me that we will see a massive Bitcoin cycle. Altcoins against their Bitcoin pairs are going to outperform massively. But in our entire last bull market, we literally never saw the Bitcoin pairs make a cycle. You can't have true alt season unless they're outperforming their Bitcoin pairs. If we come over here and look at Ethereum against Bitcoin, Ethereum against Bitcoin is truly one of the most bullish charts I have ever seen. But nonetheless, we never saw this make a new all-time high. Look at this massive, massive accumulation that Ethereum has been in throughout all of this time frame, right? But we've never actually made a new all-time high. There's consistent volume coming in here, but we're just growing on a parabolic trend that hasn't gone parabolic yet. I truly believe, with everything that the charts are telling me, with my 7 years going into this, 7 years now being in crypto, I believe that what we will see is a massive alt season. This is probably going to be the cycle where Ethereum flips Bitcoin in market cap and takes that #1 position. People are going to debate me on this in the comments, but here's the thing. Ethereum only needs a 2x, maybe a 2.5x, but actually I think it's even less than a 2x at this point because Bitcoin and Ethereum have actually been parrying each other throughout this entire rally up. So Bitcoin, what we're looking at here inside of the Bitcoin dominance chart, I wouldn't be surprised to see this rally up higher. It looks like it's going to do at least retesting the range highs up here, and I wouldn't be surprised to see this extend upwards of about 54 to 55% before, starting that new bearish trend back down. I believe that the Bitcoin dominance will end up between 20 and 10% dominance, and when we actually go into a new low, even below the 2018 one that we saw here, where Bitcoin bottomed, that will be where we see true alt season. Keep in mind, guys, that when we look at these Bitcoin pairs, where is it? Over here. If we look at these Bitcoin pairs, they never made a brand new cycle. Technically, this was just the beginning, higher highs and higher lows, but a new trend is where we break out, make a new all-time high, and lead to a sort of blow off top. I don't believe that we saw that with any altcoins besides new altcoins that hadn't had a prior cycle, right? When we're looking at our OG altcoins, you know, we can also look at XMR as an example. XMR against Bitcoin, these are all cycles that never actually went into a new high, but they're building massive bases, massive formations here. We never made a lower low throughout our entire consolidation. Now we're actually making a higher high here, or working on a higher high. This is what we need to see for a new bull trend. We just never saw that in our last cycle. Bitcoin outperformed massively. Many of our OG altcoins never really made massive cycles, but nonetheless, they are going to in this next bull run. I'm very confident in stating that. What we see is massive volume that are coming in here against the Bitcoin pairs, or I should say with the Bitcoin pairs. That tells me that all of these whales that have been holding their Bitcoin are diversifying into altcoins. They understand that Bitcoin is massively overvalued, and if not overvalued, yes, you'll still get a great return holding Bitcoin. You're going to make more money by buying those altcoins, and that's why the Bitcoin whales have always bought altcoins. Our last cycle never really saw the same rule of thumb, where we saw the altcoins just massively outperform. They did have their time to shine. We did see, you know, this chart drop significantly, but once May 2021 came around, Bitcoin topped at 65K, we just saw consolidation inside of this range. And that's been throughout our entire bear market. So whether we reclaim, or what I should say, whether we swipe above these range highs, we clear the range highs and ultimately do a bear trap before our next major low, or whether we end up just kind of moving into these range highs like this, and then that is what leads us to another lower low. The big thing I want you guys to remember here is we are making a lower low inside of this next cycle for altcoins. This will be price discovery for altcoins. This is where we will see those Bitcoin pairs get outperformed. And that's the big thing I want you guys to remember here. Looking at many of these different cycles, we are looking at massive, massive accumulation patterns. XRP is a prime example. This is a huge inverse head and shoulder formation. A massive inverse head and shoulder formation with volume to match, right? And so with that being said, I believe very, very, very firmly that this is going to be on par with many of our biggest altcoin cycles we've ever had, really dating us all the way back to 2017. Our entire last cycle was never a true altcoin cycle, no matter how you like to twist it. And that's why I want you guys to remember here that we need to prepare for a massive, massive, massive cycle coming. I've shared with you guys this chart a million different times. I'm going to continue to share this chart with you guys all the way through until it actually comes true, because what we're looking at is the exact same setup before our 2017 bull run. There's a reason all of these altcoin Bitcoin pairs are creating massive accumulation patterns, big rounded bottom formations. Ethereum is holding up the most strength, and it hasn't ever made a new all-time high. There's a reason why all of these are building such massive accumulation patterns. And when we come over here and look at the total altcoin market cap, it's in the exact same place as right here when we bottomed at the very end of 2016 and the beginning of 2017. This was that massive bull run, the most life-changing bull run we had ever had you have been invested in altcoins. I don't believe that that is over by any means. Yes, many of the high caps will have diminishing returns, but when we're looking at Ethereum doing another 30x or whatever it is, or many of the other OG altcoins that are sitting at multi-billions of dollars doing a 30x, that is a massive move that's still going to happen. Nonetheless, if Ethereum does a 30x, if XRP does a 30x, can you imagine what these early altcoins that don't have a cycle under their belt are going to do? That's where we're going to see the 100x, the 500x, the 1000x. It happens every cycle. I had the opportunity of making life-changing wealth in our last bull cycle. And that was all, really, I didn't get money until this point right here. And then when COVID happened, I only had $500 to buy that low. So I pretty much was all in at this point. And I was still able to turn, $40,000. I would say probably, I invested about another $100,000 right here when we flipped our range highs. And so I would say about $150,000 total investment, I was able to make multi-millions. And I know people that had a lesser amount of investment that were able to even make more than me. Smarter people than me, understood more of better opportunities inside of the market. And that's why I'm so excited for not only myself, but all of you guys that are watching this video today have been invested inside of the markets. Because here's the thing, think back to what you made inside of our last bull cycle. Think of what you have today. You are going to be able to turn that into a significant amount of money. If I was able to turn that into that amount of money off of just this small little impulse, Think about what we're going to be able to turn that into when we actually have a real liftoff, right? A huge, huge bull cycle, something along the lines of 2017. Think about all of the money that we're going to be able to turn our portfolios now into. That's what I want you guys to focus on. If we never have seen a true alt season like 2017, our entire last cycle was highly profitable, but it still was not even close to what we saw in 2017. It gets me so excited for you guys that are going to be able to make this profit. Hopefully, I'm going to be able to give you guys the very best analysis possible. That's my goal for this cycle. I truly want to see you guys make the most money. That's what makes me happy. You know, I have made life-changing wealth inside of these markets already, and now it really, you know, the numbers grow on the screen and it makes you short-term happy. There is a sense of satisfaction that you do get making more money, but the true satisfaction comes when you see other people that still work their day jobs, that have families that they support, that have mortgages they have to pay, they have car payments, all of this stuff. What makes me truly happy, more than anything in the world, more than me making $10 million tomorrow, is being able to see you guys that are still working your normal jobs, still living your average life, still trying to get out of that average 9 to 5. When you guys are able to actually quit your 9 to 5, pay off your house, pay off your cars, get out of debt, and still have money on top of all of that, that's what makes me happy. That's why I do this channel. I ultimately want to see that happen for every single one of the people watching this video. And so I'm super excited heading into this next cycle because, like I've stated 100 million times up to this point, we are going to see a much bigger bull run than anything in comparison of our last cycle. You have $10,000, you have $500. $500 in specific altcoins is enough to literally get yourself out of debt. When some of my most profitable trades were when I only had $500. It was just the fact that I was buying at the range lows and were willing to hold throughout that entire bull run. Decentraland was a prime example of that. I bought Solana at $10 million market cap. That would have been like a 600 or 700x had I been willing to hold the whole way. I sold early. That was my mistake. But nonetheless, guys, it's pretty easy to spot which cryptos are going to perform the best, which ones have the best fundamentals. And, you know, at the end of the day, we're not always going to know exactly which ones, but my hope for this next cycle is to be able to give you guys the best analysis possible, give you guys a much deeper understanding than I did inside of our last bear market, because I'm much better prepared this time around than ever before. I have money, I have cash, I've been accumulating, I've been researching, most importantly. I didn't know crap about fundamentals in our last bear market. I literally didn't. I didn't care about fundamentals. All I cared about was charts. The big thing I'm excited about this cycle around is the fact that, yes, I still understand charts. I understand charts even better than I used to. But now what I understand is the full picture. I now understand fundamentals. I understand which cryptos are going to be doing the best, which cryptos to look out for, which cryptos to avoid. Different things than what I didn't know in the last cycle that I'm really excited to be able to help you guys walk yourself through this coming cycle. So guys, thank you so much for the support. Thank you so much for continuing to stick through your trading plans throughout the bear market. All of the people that are still here are going to be the ones that make all of that money. You know, there's always going to be the people that leave in the bear market and then they just magically appear when the market starts breaking out. I've already started to see those people reappearing. So it really is important that you understand who you're following for information. I'm not some trading expert. I'm not some massive fundamental expert. I'm just somebody that does understand the cycles, has been able to consistently make profit throughout them, and I'm looking forward to being able to teach you guys some of those valuable lessons that, you know, help me to make that profit. This cycle around, I want to see you guys be able to do the same thing. So if you're still here, pat yourself on the back. You've honestly made it throughout this bear market, and now comes the massive reward, now comes the opportunity, and now comes the payment for all of that hard work and dedication. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. If you found value in this, leave a like, comment, and subscribe. Hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on any of these videos. If you guys want to join my VIP, follow the trades that I'm taking. I'm posting tons of signals, especially now. I have been throughout the last 6 months. But now that we're into confirmation of what I believe is the true bottom, I'm going to be posting a ton more. There's a lot of opportunity that's going to be made during this first leg up. And so if you guys want to know what I'm buying, what I'm focusing my positions for this next cycle, what I believe are going to be some of those biggest winners, you guys should really check out my VIP. Links are in the description for anybody that wants to sign up. Like I said, thank you guys so much for tuning in. And with that being said, I will catch you in the next one. As always, peace out.